Welcome back, sparklers, to another episode of Ignite Your Spark. I'm your host, Kim Duff Selby. I thank you for tuning in because I know you have a choice when it comes to listening to podcasts. And I know that there are more and more of us out there in the podcasting space. So I want you to know I truly, truly appreciate your listening, sharing, subscribing, and really knowing that this podcast is for you. It's not about me. It's about you. It's about bringing inspiration, light to you so that you can go out and become your brightest self. Today, my guest is a returning guest, Theresa Lear Levine, and I am really thrilled to bring her to you and to me and to my space so that she can shine her light out to all of you to increase your light. Theresa is an EFT master practitioner. She's a hypnotherapist. She was formerly in the health and nutrition space as a coach, and now she works with women. She works with women to help them become the best version of themselves. And she has a new book that just launched yesterday, and she is an international best-selling author. Welcome, Theresa.
Thank you, Kim. I can't believe it. It's the most surreal time in my life, I think, among them at least. So glad to be here.
It is a time that you will be able to hold on to and a memory that you will forever have for launching and creating and giving birth to this book, the title of which is Becoming More Me, Tapping into Success, Subconscious Secrets of an ADHD Entrepreneurial Mom. So many can relate to that.
That's me.
I was fortunate to get the Kindle version of the book yesterday and be able to read almost half of it now. And
Wow.
I know I was really, rushing through it. So I love it. It's great. It brings up so much information about you. It's very raw and vulnerable, and you tell some great stories.
Thank you.
Before we go into you and talk more about EFT, even though I had you on previously a year and a half or so ago, I know that there are no new people who listen all the time. So I want to go into EFT and hypnosis and how you utilize those modalities to assist women. But you know what I'm going to ask you, because I don't know if the answer's changed, but how do you ignite your spark?
Oh, I like to ignite my spark through gratitude. I think that's probably my favorite way to really get it going and flowing. And I know that listeners don't get the privilege of hearing what happens before you hit record, but you really called that in right before we began this episode, also, as we put our hands on our hearts and just really called the right energy into the space. And yeah, I mean, gosh, I had the best example of it yesterday as I launched too. It was like a whole day in gratitude of just the amount of love and support and receiving that I got to experience yesterday. And my spark was definitely ignited.
Hope that carries you on for a long time. You are also an NLP practitioner, aren't you?
Yeah, I have studied NLP also, and yeah, EFT, hypnotherapy, law of attraction.
All of the good stuff, all of the stuff we love, you and I love, all the woo. Well, to my mind, as I'm sitting here reflecting on your glowingness now, I believe that this day and yesterday can be used as anchors for you in, as they say in NLP language, to come back to whenever you need that. I know you have your EFT practice, but just the glow on your face now is just so special that I know you will be able to call that up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's like I don't have any other word other than surreal. It's just been very surreal.
Yeah, writing a book, we sit down, and those of us who love to read, just like read the book. And sometimes we don't think about the blood, sweat, and tears that go into it. But I love how in the beginning of your book, you actually take us through that. You take us through your process and how starting it. I just wanted to hear more about that. I was like, oh, about your day-to-day life, because
My whole morning of craziness leading up to actually writing the first words, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, I loved it. It gives people permission to know that, yes, Theresa is an author, but her life is not always, like sit down and write 10 pages a day. She's normal.
No.
We scatter back and forth, and especially being ADHD and having 4 boys. She has
Yes.
4 boys. Well, her husband, 5 boys. Well, and then 2
And
dogs.
2 dogs, yeah, then the list, also boys.
She's got a lot of male energy going there. So she has a very busy life in addition to her practice, the coaching women, working with women. So tell us just very briefly, because I think most people who listen to the podcast, hopefully, are familiar with EFT. But if you would take us through a little bit of the science too behind tapping and what it does and how it regulates our nervous system, that would be great.
Absolutely. I fell in love with the technique because for me it worked so quickly and effectively like nothing else ever had. And then I wanted to learn all of those things like why does this work and everything else. I think that's probably why I like when the occasional men come to work with me because they always appreciate the science and women are just like, "Oh cool, it works. Yay." And they're usually like more willing to trust. But for me, I was skeptical. And learning how when we actually tap these different parts in our body and the ones that we focus on mainly are the side of our hand. It's known as the karate chop point. And then there's spots from the top of our head down to under our arm, around our eyes, or under our nose, under our mouth, our collarbone. These are called meridian endpoint. So this brings in the ancient Chinese wisdom portion of EFT. And these are places where our energy can get stuck. When we have energy that's not flowing the way that it's supposed to be through our life force system, which is our meridian system, then we have dis-ease. So that doesn't necessarily mean disease. That means anything that's not feeling quite right, any kind of dis-ease, emotionally, physically, things from the past. This can be past trauma. This can be future pacing and anxiety. This can be things happening in the present moment. But the problem is that we only have power in the present moment. So when we're leaking our energy or our energy is stagnating because of these things that are not happening presently, we're not showing up in our full power in the present. So as we tap these points and we focus on whatever the issue or the challenge is, we go right to the amygdala. We send messages directly to that little almond-shaped part of the brain that is in charge of our fight, flight, freeze, flee, fawn, all of those things. And we calm it down. It sends a signal right there, whereas talk therapy doesn't go right there and access that, which is why a lot of times people end up feeling better for a little bit with talk therapy, but then usually the same thing will trigger them and they'll be right back where they started. So you actually get to work this out on a physical, emotional, mental, spiritual level, all through the mind and the body working with EFT. And this is a form of nervous system regulation. So this allows us to be able to move more flexibly between states and to become regulated again when we're in those dysregulated states. And, with my book being focused around ADHD women and most of my practice, because I am also an ADHD woman, this is incredibly important for our focus, our procrastination, our concentration, all of those things that tend to, muddle up the works or that we might even, beat ourselves up about, even though we shouldn't.
Yeah, I like that. I love how it regulates the nervous system, which is something we all need, not just ADHD people. And we were talking a little bit before I started recording about how I think that I have adult onset ADHD and I'm way in adulthood, I'm past that. And I don't think that I had OCD as a kid, so I think that it's all sort of related, possibly. But I also think that more and more people have or self-diagnose, but I think it's because of media and the ability to move from one thing to another so quickly.
Yeah.
The sound bites that you hear, it really is interesting to me because I studied broadcast journalism in graduate school. And I know even back then that the segments were very short. They're always like bite-sized segments. And they said it's because people can't focus. People don't have the attention. So we're being fed that constantly. And then
Right.
on Instagram and TikTok, when you're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and everything is in bite-sized nuggets, and it's like this and that and the other, I think it gets those of us who have a tendency toward that to get even more spun up.
Yeah. I think it makes us all kind of impatient because we want it fed to us that way because it gives us that dopamine hit quicker, it gives us the information quicker, we're doing something else. But it also completely neglects our need to slow down. And we're all just going like 1,000 miles an hour all day long, and that is dysregulation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, learning to slow down, I think, would be, much easier if things were being fed to us in slowness also, and we were actually expected to concentrate versus, I mean, they even like when you talk about social media or you learn about like hot trends and things like that, it's all about like how fast can you get it out there or the hook or, whatever it is so that you don't lose people's attention because you've only got less than 5 seconds, probably less than 3 seconds to get it. And that's kind of sad.
It really is sad. And it hurts my heart sometimes that media and is constantly encouraging us to go faster, 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 more and more and more. So it's people like you that we need to rely on to get the word out. And I do see more of an attention being placed on self-care, certainly calming down, slowing down, and really going within. And maybe that's just because it's the space that I'm in, but I do think it's becoming more, well, popular, I guess. Even some of the big names, like Katie Couric writes a weekly newsletter, and sometimes she'll have things in there about mindfulness. And I think that the more we get the word out about those kinds of modalities and ways to assist us in our everyday life, the better, of course.
Yeah.
When you work with women primarily, do you utilize hypnosis along with EFT? Do you lead them into a hypnotic state? And I know that you say it in your book and you hear it every time someone says something. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So
Yeah.
tell me how you incorporate hypnosis into working with someone.
Absolutely. So they're not happening simultaneously.
Okay.
It's not like we're in a hypnotic trance and doing EFT, but they are happening in separate sessions. So a lot of times when I begin working with someone, if we're doing, one-to-one work or even like group hybrid work, I'm getting to understand their challenges first. And we might start with hypnosis, we might start with EFT. It just really depends on the individual. My one-to-one work is very personalized. So we're going to start where we need to start. But I find that with hypnotherapy, we can regress a bit. We can get the subconscious mind, coming up and allowing us to see things that we don't necessarily get from the conscious mind. And from there, we can transform whatever it is that needs working on. I usually create a lovely audio that goes along with my hypnotherapy sessions for my clients to listen to for about 21 days. Seems to be that magic number of days to really reprogram the mind. And then when we meet again, we might go back through some of the scenes or the issues that came up while they were in trance to see if there's anything that we still need to regulate around there or things that are still feeling. I would say it's kind of like that zap feeling. Like when you think about a bothersome memory or a past story or whatever that you tell yourself and you kind of get that like kind of feeling, then you know that there's an energetic blockage.
Mm.
So if those feelings are still associated with the stories and the beliefs and things, then we can use emotional freedom techniques to work through what's left really easily. Emotional freedom techniques also, like I piggyback them is essentially what happens because if we're working through, I like to do a lot of like lower chakra work and things with EFT, which will have us going into earlier times in a client's life. Past traumas might be coming up, and that might be where they realize that it's a lack of self-confidence, or that might be where they realize there's a lack of feeling worthy or feeling enough or feeling safe or letting go or whatever the kind of underlying issue is. And that's a beautiful time to then say, okay, so maybe at our next session, we do some hypnosis around that and we see what the subconscious mind has to offer us, not just what the conscious mind already knows, because we've been working with what the conscious mind knows for our whole life. And for most of us that feel stuck, that has not helped us get where we need to go. So peel the curtain back, look inside, see what's there. Very relaxing, very full of aha moments, and then transform that through hypnosis. So, and through that, different pattern and kind of piggybacking back and forth, we end up working through a lifetime of stuff in, a half dozen sessions or so.
Can EFT, wait, that's probably not, because I was thinking back to something you said early in your book about how you went to this retreat. And you talked about this in our first podcast together, because I do remember, but how you had COVID, didn't know it because it was early
Yes.
days, February
Mhm.
2020. And you went to this retreat and you learned EFT, and it actually helped. It didn't eliminate the symptoms, but what was interesting to me, our mind is so freaking powerful that you were able to feel better because you were doing the tapping on something else, but I think it just helped you take yourself out of that illness state and into a different state of being. And I know you say that it's like borrowed benefits from,
Yes, that's exactly what it's called.
and I think that is fascinating because EFT is not actually going to cure or stop an illness, right? I mean,
No.
hypnosis might
I
if
mean, it's debatable, I suppose, because, I don't think with COVID, I don't think I could have gotten a better result than what I got, which was hours of relief, which was amazing at the time. But EFT does have the ability to alter our genetics. So with epigenetics and things like that, yes, there is the ability to potentially reverse different ailments, diseases, things like that. So there's still a lot of work and studies being done on that, but yeah, I mean, it actually does have a lot more power than we realize. And it's not just our mind. It's our nervous system that's being regulated and a lot of other things that are happening. So it's not just like a belief thing. It's, we're working directly with the brain and the body in that. So it does have a lot of power. Hypnosis has that same power. I mean, I've worked with people in hypnosis for like infertility issues, or, when we're working on healing parts of the body, if you have one knee that's bad and one knee that's good, we can work to make the bad knee mimic the good knee, because our brain has that power to replicate things, and it's much more powerful than a lot of other things. So there's a lot of really cool ways that we can use our brain to make tangibly physically tangible differences.
I want that. I have one knee that bothers me and one knee that doesn't. So I'm like, brain, get it together here.
There you go. Yeah.
I think it is interesting because a lot of it is obviously in our brain. And as you said also in the book, and this is fresh to me because I was obviously got it last night, so I'm reading it as much as I can. But you
Amazing.
said something about how our brain wants to keep us safe.
Yes.
And it sort of goes when we're trying something new that may not be safe. And with EFT and hypnosis, then we can sort of tell ourselves, I guess, can we? The question is there to, hey, yo, this is what you need, what you want. We have blocks like, why am I not as abundant as I want? Why am I not able to write this book? Why am I not getting the jobs I want? That is all in our brain. And is that right? We're stopping because a lot of times our brain is like, oh, that's out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. Most times there is a story behind there that is preventing you from performing the way that you want to or getting the result that you want to. And that story might be having you show up at a different frequency than you need to be to magnetize what you want into your life. It might be protective, and it might be like kind of strange. Like maybe you just constantly start feeling tired when it's time to like sell yourself in your business, or you always kind of like find yourself procrastinating when it's time to do things that like actually move the needle in whatever area of your life that you're excuse me, in whatever area of your life you're trying to improve. Or maybe in your marriage you keep having the same argument over and over again, even though it's not serving either of you and it's not truly how you feel or based in love.
Mm.
And at the base of all that is usually some kind of your brain thinks it's keeping you safe. This is what's familiar. This is what you've been doing. And even though you'd rather have a more productive conversation with your spouse, you'd rather, sell the heck out of your business, you'd rather do all of those things, there's no familiarity that's been established there. So that is something where emotional freedom techniques and hypnosis are really powerful at reprogramming. And also where, things like that you can do without any of that are really helpful too. I'm not sure if you've gotten to part of the book where I talk about asking positive questions of the subconscious. But, when people often use affirmations, those can be kind of like almost goal traumatizing sometimes, because we'll try to affirm ourselves into like being millionaires, or, being 75 pounds lighter, or, whatever these crazy affirmations that we have. And usually they keep us stuck where we are because our brain goes, you're so far away from that. That's ridiculous. Who do you think you are? That is not you. Have you seen your bank account? Have you seen the size of your clothing? Like, your brain just starts giving you all this negativity back. And all of a sudden you're like, you give up. But if you start asking positive questions of your subconscious mind, like, what would it take for me to add an additional $10,000 a month to my income? Or what would it take for me to eat the foods and move my body in ways that are aligned with, losing a certain amount of weight or feeling more energetic or whatever that is? Then your brain is going to spend all day, even when you're not thinking about it, looking for those answers for you. Our
Mm.
brain responds to questions, not statements. So affirmations are beautiful, but they don't send your brain looking for the information that gets you the results.
Oh, okay. So if you're asking your brain that, are you to answer yourself or you just put the question out there?
It's kind of like when you ask the universe for things. When you're just putting it out there for your subconscious mind, what would it take for me to eh, be in the best marriage? What would it take for me to attract the perfect partner? What would it take for me to start waking up in a good mood every morning? What would it take? Just all these kind of what would it take questions. Just ask them. Make a list of ones that are really important to you. Ask them to yourself before you go to bed at night. Let your brain and subconscious think about it the whole time you're sleeping.
Oh,
It's
okay.
effortless, and it will start coming up with the solutions for you, or ask them to yourself in the shower in the morning or whatever. I have a whole list of these like questions that I have in the book, and I love them. It's one of my favorite ways to get my clients kind of reframing things too, and really getting their minds working for them.
Ooh, yeah, I haven't gotten there yet. It must be right around the corner, right around
I'm
the
sure it is. You're plugging through.
I know people will have this question, and we didn't talk about how you go into the negative first with EFT, but we'll go into that too. And this is probably a question that is not the same answer for everybody. How long does it take? How many sessions? How many times? If someone has a deep rooted fear or obsession or whatever it is, I'm sure it takes longer. But as you experienced the first time you did it, you got immediate relief. But it's something you need to keep doing, right? It's not like a one and done.
It depends what you're working on.
Mhm.
So let me try to answer this as well as I can, because you can resolve something one and done with a round of EFT, depending on what it is. I've seen people do that with phobias. I've seen people do that with cravings. I've seen people do that with bothersome memories, lots of different things. One round was enough, never was a problem again. And then there's other things that are more complex, where maybe we need a few rounds of EFT, a few sessions, maybe we need a round of hypnosis, that kind of thing. It's just a matter of, once you get to the root of whatever it is, then there's no reason for it to come back. There's no reason for it to, kind of regrow in the subconscious, so to speak. Now, and it also depends on what you're looking for. Like, is all that you want to, get over a phobia of needles or a fear of public speaking or something like that? That's way easier than if you want to completely overhaul all of your, issues from a lifetime, So it's a matter of being realistic and, yeah, kind of tempering your expectations a little bit. But I don't think anything's really out of reach. I think, and there's a lot of layers that start to affect things that you don't even realize they're affecting. Someone might come to me because they want to switch jobs or get profitable in their business, or just feel better and get present as a parent and spouse, and also manage their work. And in the process of us focusing on like the one or two things that were really important to them, all sorts of things start changing for the better. So there's a huge connection in all of our areas of life, and between our brain, subconscious, and our body. And when we start really digging into that and we realize how much is possible, then people are usually like, okay, cool, let's work on this next time. Let's work on that, you know? So yeah, it's just a matter of tempering your expectations and also realizing like what you can accomplish. But it's amazing what you can accomplish in just, you know, an hour of doing this kind of work together, and also what you can accomplish in like 6 months of doing this kind of work together, you know?
I do
Most people, we can get through a good lifetime's worth of stuff in half a year to a year, you know, of seeing each other a time or two a month.
Right, which is much faster than traditional talk therapy that people
Oh
are in
yeah.
months and months and years and decades.
Yes, I often have people that come to me who have been doing talk therapy for months and months and years and decades and decades. And oftentimes by like the third session, they're like, I've gotten more progress in the last 3 sessions than I got in all that talk therapy. Like, this is insane. So, and that's why I loved this so much, because when I started doing it, even just as a novice level 1 practitioner, kind of muddling through things, I was getting insane results on a daily basis. And I would just pick something every day. And I was like, I'm just going to do a tapping round on something. I have a list. I just look at my list or whatever was bothering me the most that day and just spend 5 or 10 minutes working on it, and just being in amazement every day at how many ways that I was showing up differently in my life.
And you do, I have a lot of questions now, but you do traditionally 3 rounds or more, I guess, depending on how you're feeling. Is there a
So
set
a
number?
round of EFT consists of a setup, which is where we spend the time on the side of the hand, that karate chop point or the sore spot on our chest, and we use those even though I statements. So you mentioned you had a knee that was bothering you. So even though my knee hurts or whatever, I love, accept, and forgive myself. And you could say that exact same statement 3 times, or you could, you know, zhuzh it a little bit and, you know, say a little bit more about the issue with the knee. And then from there, you start at the top of your head, down through your eyebrow, side of the eye, under the nose, under the mouth, collarbone, under the arm, tapping each of those spots at least 5 to 7 times while focusing in on the negative aspect of what's going on with that knee or whatever the issue is that you're tapping on. And you go through those spots from top of the head to under the arm 3 times. And maybe you're feeling like turning it a little bit around at the end and it's feeling a little more positive, and you can, you know, start saying things like, I'm opening up to the idea that this is a temporary physical issue and that it could potentially transform. I'm, you know, feeling a little better, maybe. Whatever the things are transforming, maybe you're opening up to that at the end. And that finishes a round. So a round is the setup plus 3 times through those spots from head to under the arm. That's 1 round.
Okay. Can you just tap even if you don't have words to say? Like sometimes
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
tap just to calm down.
Yeah. And you probably have thoughts.
Millions.
So while you're tapping, those thoughts are probably doing the talking for you.
But it is important to go through the negative first and then. And that was always my question. You do the negative and then you do the positive, or
If it feels aligned and genuine.
oh, okay.
If you're still, I mean, when people are dealing with grief and trauma and things like that, we could get stuck in the negative for a little while, you know? But we keep looking for those little glimmers, those little places where maybe we can raise the frequency just a notch. Maybe we can notice that something is shifting. Maybe we're kind of chasing that pain, or, you know, something is moving or shifting there. It's not, you know, forever that they get stuck, but sometimes we need to spend a little bit more time in the negative. And I will say that a lot of people who do tapping, and there's, you know, if you look it up, you can find positive tapping where the whole round is positive. But in those cases, you're building upon what you already have. So I like giving the negative a voice. I don't think the world gives us enough opportunities to give the negative stuff a voice. So I kind of, you know, I like to promote that part of emotional freedom techniques because that's what's going to address the issue.
Got it.
Whereas we can do positive EFT tapping and we could do a round on, you know, feeling confident today, or, you know, being productive, or whatever we wanted to do, and just do the positive. But it's just going to kind of, you know, put that on top of what's already underneath the surface. So it will help, no doubt, but the issue's still there.
Got it. Makes sense. What I'm thinking as we're talking about this, because, you know, we all have so much generational trauma passed down,
Mm-hmm.
and how fabulous it will be for generations to come if we are able to indeed stop some of those crazy thoughts of being chased by a tiger, because since that's not a part of our life anymore,
Yes.
hopefully that in generations to come, they won't have to do as much work as we do, because we are creating a more positive way of being.
I'm so glad you brought that up because generational trauma is like one of my favorite things to deal with when people are actually conscious of it. Not everyone is. We all have it. We might not know it, but for people who do know, like, oh, my grandmother or my great grandmother went through this or what have you, like we can actually work on that within your nervous system and it's healing to them, dead or alive. And it really helps to end these cycles, and it's difficult being a cycle ender because usually part of that looks like participating in the cycle and part of it looks like trying to kind of like hold up the shield and protect ourselves from the cycle and then kind of walking hand in hand with the next generation in a new fashion.
Mm.
And it's difficult because it's familiar to us to be part of whatever that cycle is, whatever our family has done traditionally. It could be something as simple as being a yeller or a screamer, or I have a lot of women who like getting pregnant at a young age was part of the generational cycle, or abortion was part of the generational cycle, or just the lack of worthiness or whatever, and that's just been part of generations and generations, and they're the ones that are changing it. And it also has a lot of effects on the lower chakras and our energy system because that's our family, that's our tribe of origin. And whether what they did or experienced or went through is best or it's something that we don't want to be part of, it's what makes us feel like we're part of that tribe.
Mhm.
And breaking that cycle can feel like abandonment. It can feel like a lot of unsafety. It can feel very threatening. It can have that feeling of like, I'm going to be left alone and die.
Yeah. If someone is not aware of their past trauma in their generational line, so to speak, because I was adopted and found out I was adopted at 22, can hypnosis help discover what that trauma might be that you don't know? Say you have no idea. I know that's something like past life regression too, but I wonder if you can discover it through hypnosis and then tap on something.
I think it would depend. I have had some really interesting experiences with clients who have been very like in touch energetically and spiritually with things in hypnosis. It's not something where I could like set up a session and be like, we're going to achieve this and know it. But when you're dealing with hypnosis, you're dealing with a subconscious mind, which is your own experiences since your time, being conceived and forward. And the subconscious mind stores everything. I have, it's in my book somewhere, but something like, 21 full volumes of what we used to know as the Encyclopedia Britannica and used to have on our bookshelves back in the day. By the time we're like 18 or 21, like that's how much stuff is in there. And you can only imagine how much is in there now. And it was, but before we were of the age of 7, we were just taking all of it in as fact because we weren't operating in our conscious mind yet. So it didn't matter whether it was right or wrong or whatever. It was like, this is life, this is how it is. All those things that our parents, caretakers, people around us were doing became our belief system without us arguing with it at all or having a different opinion. So I don't know that in hypnosis we could go to another lifetime necessarily, because that's not in the subconscious, but it would depend. I mean, maybe you'd recall a conversation that, you remember having with your mom when you were little, where she was talking about a generation before, or maybe clues. There's clues everywhere.
Yeah, I'm just curious, really, because I just don't know. But I know that having been adopted, I know I have that trauma stored of being taken from one person and given to another, no matter how
Yeah.
much love was involved in the transaction.
Yeah.
Or
So
it's,
there, Kim, is where I would think like your intuition and your gut guidance is really the most important thing to develop and get in touch with.
yeah,
Because I'm trying to say this without wanting to sound insensitive. It doesn't matter what happened; it matters how you feel.
yeah, exactly. No,
You
and
know,
I suffer from fear of abandonment because
of
of
course.
many issues doing that work on myself and thinking back, but I haven't cleared it. There's no way I've cleared it, but I have it. And we all have.
Yeah. So it becomes a matter of upgrading that abandoned. How old were you when you were adopted?
Immediately.
Okay. That, upgrading that abandoned baby,
Yeah.
that inner self of yours into your current life where you're not abandoned, and getting that version of you acclimated to that and understanding that she can never go back there, even if she wanted to. There's no way to do that. At this point, it's just a story. And that is something that we do very effectively with hypnotherapy.
Oh, yeah, that's so good. That's so true. We should not dwell on those things because it is just a story. I don't dwell on it, by the way. It's
I'm
just,
sure you don't, but it's there. It's always, because the subconscious, it's always in the background, and it kind of taints, affects, colors, gives you this lens that you see things through.
yeah. Oh my gosh, this time has flown by with you, Theresa. I just have enjoyed it so much just chatting with you. And I wonder if you have any other tip, trick, word of wisdom you might want to share with my audience.
Oh, I wish I knew what I shared with them last time. I hope I'm not repetitive. My favorite little like easy trick, just so that you don't overcomplicate things, is if you feel like things are getting a little bit overwhelming, or maybe you're having a difficult conversation on the phone or a difficult moment, one point tapping. Like right now, if you're watching the video, I'm just tapping my chest area. This is the collarbone area with one hand, the five fingers and the thumb, and talking. So if I was having a difficult conversation on the phone or just trying to process something, and maybe like, how you like, I don't know, with me, like I'll call my mom or a good friend or whatever, and I'm kind of like, bitching about my day, like having a rant. And instead of that being unproductive and then wanting to like have that same conversation with my husband when he gets home because I haven't quite worked it out, I can work that out of my energy system by just tapping and talking through that one conversation. And I leave the conversation with a different perspective, and also knowing that it hasn't stagnated in my energy system. So that's my favorite little like tip that's easy, that anybody can do no matter what. You don't have to know what words to say or whatever. You just are expressing yourself from the heart while tapping one single point on your body. It could be the side of the hand, the chest, the back of the neck. Any of these meridian endpoints are beautiful to go for.
That's great. In fact, just doing that now while you were talking, I was like, oh, I feel sort of my chi moving around there.
Yeah. When
It's
when you had us put our hands on our heart and we were kind of doing that prayer and calling in universal guidance before we started, I actually had my arms crossed. I don't know if your eyes were closed, so you probably didn't see, but I was tapping my two collarbone points, almost like, connecting my hands like a butterfly and just tapping those points and allowing that energy to move. So, yeah, I
good.
love that
I've
one.
seen, I meant to say this earlier, but I have seen videos of children in schools now doing tapping. I don't know where it was, but I remember seeing that going,
It
what an
should be everywhere.
yeah, it should be everywhere. And to start their day, instead of saying the Pledge of Allegiance, come on, let's start with a little tapping.
I mean, you could technically do the Pledge of Allegiance and do that one point tapping that I just talked about. Maybe we should upgrade to that. What do you think, US of A?
Kids, do they still do it? The Pledge of Allegiance?
They do. In my kids' school, they do. I mean, I think it's different from school to school, but my kids still do it. And yes, children, I feel like if there was one thing I'd love to see, is people using nervous system regulation and EFT tapping from like preschool or even before. And kids are this is intuitive to them. It's easy for them. There's part of me that's like, I might just transition at some point in my career from working with women that are my age to kids, because I love my youngest does beautifully with it. And he knows that it's a go-to tool if he has a nightmare, if he has a bad day, if he is just not feeling quite as confident or strong or whatever during a day. He's like, I'm gonna do some tapping, mom. And he knows he's got that power within himself. Kids need to be doing this. It literally could change the world.
So great. These kids, your boys are so lucky to have you as a mom to have integrated that into their lives. So it's wonderful. Thank you, Theresa. And thank you for giving us your time today, because you are an international best-selling author now.
You're the first person that's gotten to talk to me since I had that realization. And yeah, I'm so glad it was you. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate your support. I'm so glad that I could do it here.
We didn't even talk about what becoming more me means, but another podcast. We need to wrap up now. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and gifts and talents with me and my audience today.
My pleasure, Kim. Thank you.
Go out and ignite your sparks, folks, and try tapping. It is truly mind altering and nervous system regulating. And we all need that in order to find our inner spark, shine it, and share it. So go out, because you know what? The world needs your light. Thanks for listening, and shine.